This is Lily Genovese. I'm the coordinator for Trout in the Classroom. I'm here in New York City's watershed at the virtual trout tank at Ward Pond Ridge Reservation at the Trailside Museum. Actually, you can see Mindy. She runs the museum here. She's in the back. We're trying to keep our distance. We're being safe. We've got our masks. Right behind me, you can see our virtual trout tank. Everything is looking good. We came in to check on the fish, give them a little bit of food, test the water quality, which is definitely looking better today, although we're still trying to kick off our nitrogen cycle. One thing that I noticed this morning is that a couple of our trout are missing, and there are some what appear to be body parts inside the tank. So what I think is happening is some cannibalism, which is not unheard of in our trout tanks and certainly common in streams. I know a lot of students often ask me, like, Miss Lily, do trout really eat one another? And yes, they absolutely do. What I want to talk about today is trout predators. Since we discovered that there are some missing trout, and it looks like the trout were so hungry that they started eating each other. Maybe a couple of them died and they started preying on the dead ones. The trout that with the two heads is gone. So we think that was one of the victims of the cannibalism. I'll bring you a little bit closer so you can see the trout tank, and then I'll zoom into the live camera. So you can see some of the trout are still in that nest basket. We lowered the corner so they have the option to swim out, but some of them have just decided to stay in there and hang out in there. I'll give them a little bit of food in a moment too. So we have this wonderful resource online. It's a book by April Sari. It's called Trout Are Made of Trees. I'm going to share a link to a reading of this book. I'm not actually going to do the reading right now, but this book is all about the food chain in a real stream ecosystem. So what trout eat, which we have talked about, they eat the macroinvertebrates at the bottom of the stream. And then at the very end of the book, it talks about some trout predators. So certainly trout eat each other. They eat other fish. So they are their own predators too, basically. But other species that eat trout include things like bears and other mammals, like river otters, which we actually have here at Ward Pond Ridge Reservation in the Cross River. I've seen the river otters. And we've also caught some bears. So those are just some of the mammals that will feed on trout. Here's a model of a black bear here at the Trailside Museum. Looks so real. But the biggest predators of trout are not the mammals and not the fish, but those guys right up there. So you can see these are all what we call BOPs, or birds of prey. Hawks, eagles, ospreys, owls. Birds are some of the biggest predators of trout. And some birds called kingfishers. So trout are real careful about the way that they swim and where they're located in a stream. They strategically put themselves in places where they're not going to get preyed on by birds. So I'm going to flip over to our trout cam, start feeding the trout. Remember, we feed them fish meal. We're still on size 0. We have 3 different sizes, and here we go. I'm going to put the food in there now. And you can see them going after the food. They're rising up, they're feeding. They're looking so good. So they'll come up, they'll bite the food, they'll swim back down to hide, but they're always very aware of where they're looking and what they're doing. So some of the fish are at the top. Some of the fish are hanging out at the bottom amongst those rocks. They really feel much safer there. And our chiller just kicked on, so it's getting a bit loud in here. Thank you for joining me for Think Tank Thursday.